So, welcome to Warwick from Wax Designs, who is going to do a presentation on our precinct planning project, the Tourism and Township Roadshow and Cultural Mapping. So, I'll hand over to you, and your presentation's on the screen.
Can everybody hear me all right? Do I need the microphone? I'll try and project. And bearing in mind it's a big agenda you guys have had, so I'll try and move through fairly quickly so we can have some questions at the end. As Ben said, Wax, TRC, Tourism Consulting, Brave and Curious, Sprout and Grimshaw Architects are a team that's been sort of put together to look through the tourism precinct planning project, which from my perspective is an incredibly exciting project for the region, which really brings 5 distinct projects together, but with a very strong tourism focus on how to activate, look at new opportunities, re-engage with townships, with the river, and sort of broaden that understanding of what the potential of the region is. So what I want to do is just make the slides go. Is it on?
It's on, so should we just...
Excellent. Hopefully everybody can see the slides and the text, but the slide deck I'm sure will be available for the elected members to go through. What we're trying to do is really look at attracting new growth to the area. There's some statistics which I'll go through in a minute, which sort of show where Mid-Murray is in terms of tourism, and we want to really broaden that and get as much capture as we can. We want to improve visitor experience, regional dispersal as well. There's a lot of focus on the river, and it's about broadening that focus across the whole of the region. It's looking at the unique towns, looking at the ranges, the plains and the river as a collective, but also as distinct opportunities for tourism. And I think when I'm talking about tourism, I'm also looking at how the communities can support and how looking at activation within the towns, support the local communities, but then that is brought up through to tourism opportunities across the region. Looking at brand reputation, so everybody's familiar with the Riverland and the Barossa, but it's about making a unique brand reputation for the Mid-Murray region as well, with the incredible assets and experiences that you have across this area. And then value capture. We use that phrase. It's really just expanding. I always refer to it as sort of linger longer. If somebody's coming through, they might stop for a cup of tea or coffee. If you can capture their interest for a bit longer, they're here for lunch. If you can really sort of excite them about the region, they're going to stay overnight or for a couple of nights. And that builds that economic benefit to the community and the region as a whole. Just looking at target markets at the moment, there's a strong focus, about 700,000 day trips per annum, but it's intrastate. So essentially it's people within SA coming to visit or passing through, typically one-night stays. That's great in terms of local market, but there's that real opportunity to expand that to a national market and more importantly to an international market. And focusing on the value that people want to spend on experiences and the value that they will spend within the community as well. So significant value, nearly 400 million in terms of expenditure. That's a market that can be grown. I suppose in tourism sense, relatively small, only 15,000 international tourists coming to this area. And again, that gives us that opportunity to look at what's the experience that we can do to broaden that. Strong focus on self-drive. Realistically, the size of the region, that's not going to change. So how do we improve access to facilities through self-drive and self-drive destinations? And that's already happening within the region. When we're talking about tourism, we tend to focus on an experience pyramid from sort of top to bottom. And I think that's where the uniqueness of this particular project and the interrelated projects that we have, which I'll talk to in a minute, really add the value. That you need to look at the supporting infrastructure. How does the towns, the roads, the footpaths, down to how do, seating areas support that visitor experience. Where are the experiences that come from that in terms of where do you stay, where do you want to go, what are you eating, all of those elements. Looking at what those experiences are, the tours and other elements that can sort of add to that. Are the trails linked up? Are there outlooks, cruises that can add to the value? And then really trying to explore what the hero of the experience is for any particular region. And really for Mid-Murray, as we're all aware, the dark sky experience is incredibly unique. It captures with it a wide range of experiences in terms of science, First Nations, education, just an experience as well. And I think that really is something that we're focused on in delivering as part of this project. And you've been through talking about that this morning. So I won't go into that in too much detail, but to give you a summary of where we are in relation to that project. Project scope. This was a little diagram that we put into our submission. Really just wants to show the uniqueness of the projects as a whole. So we're looking at the tourism precinct plan as a single document. It will be made up of a series of sub-projects and sub-documents. They sit primarily as tourism master plan, the township master plan, which is looking at 12 towns throughout the region and how they can be improved. The river corridor, tourism opportunities, how does infrastructure support access to and the length of time and the experience that people have on the river. Mannum falls as a unique destination within the council region, but also how can that add to different tourism experiences and community experiences. And then the dark sky astrotourism. Over the top of that, we're undertaking a very extensive cultural mapping exercise. The Mid-Murray region is sort of blessed with lots of interconnected First Nation stories and cultural knowledge. And there's a big interest in that nationally and internationally and locally that can act as a framework over which different tourism experiences, different opportunities for destinations can occur. So we're using it as a way of guiding, adding to, and giving unique experiences for each of the sub-projects that we're looking at. I did meant to say, if there's any questions as we're going along, I'm more than happy to jump in. Very quick diagram, far too small on the screen, but just essentially to show how we've interconnected all the projects in terms of consultation, meetings. We are about halfway through, and we're looking to a large community engagement and consultation session at the end of June. So part of today is really to give you an insight into what we're thinking of doing, how we want to engage with the community. And that will be across all of the sub-projects as well. That's followed by the cultural mapping workshop, which will be happening middle of June, which is when all the information will be actually drawn and painted and created by First Nations people within the region to demonstrate that cultural knowledge across, and it becomes a unique artwork. I'll talk about that a little bit. So what have we got? We've got cultural mapping exercise. It's looking at that, identifying the significance and cultural contribution across. It's not a detailed undertaking of where artifacts are. It's really opening up that conversation about what's the cultural knowledge and that we need to look at, what are the stories, what are the interesting opportunities that we can identify. The river tourism is very much focused on assets and opportunities, looking at short-term mooring and promotion of river traffic. Townships, we call it an urban design framework. It's really setting out what are the opportunities within the town. They can be as simple as putting a new footpath in or a new park bench, tree planting, but all of that encourages that linger longer, people to stop. How do we get people to sort of really engage with the region as a whole? Mannum Waterfalls, we're looking at developing a master plan for Mannum Waterfalls, which will guide development and infrastructure upgrades. And there's some interesting opportunities that are already falling out of that, which I'll share with you. And then the Dark Sky Experience, which is a fantastic opportunity, but putting together a business case and a development. So really scoping out that project so that when the board is formed, that can be one of the objectives that they can guide and will enable them to really drive the project forward to the outcome that the region requires. Cultural mapping. We've gone through the sort of first stage, which has been extensive yarning with a lot of the language groups. Interestingly, there are quite a diverse range of language groups across the region, as well as connections outside the regions in terms of trading through the Mid-Murray. So it's a really rich, diverse element to the project that we wanted to sort of build in and use as a way of guiding some of the thinking. Key findings: that there is a cultural heart that sort of sits through Walker Flat, Manuka Mission, and also not just North, so it's a bigger area is thought of as the cultural heart. Sky Country is incredibly important for all the language groups, but it's recognised that there's a bit of a knowledge gap. And I think one of the important aspects of this project has been speaking to language groups and for them to actually gain knowledge through those conversations and that learning that they're having within their group and sharing with other language groups. Story is place specific, which I think is really important when you're looking at tourism opportunities, that they are specific, and the cultural mapping gives a unique character to the Mid-Murray region, different from anywhere else, and that will be able to be amplified within the offerings and the experiences that people have when they visit. There's a need to look at heritage protection, so we carry on with that, and also Indigenous cultural intellectual property, or IP. So that's really understanding that the stories that are being shared with the council, with the project team, still sit with the knowledge holders, and there's a need to continue that conversation as you move forward. Next steps, we're undertaking detailed interviews with knowledge holders. We've got Narrandjeri, Paramank and Narrandjeri. So they will continue cultural mapping, as I said, in early June. So that will take place in the barn for a week. So it's pretty much like an artist studio, and very generously the artists have or want to encourage members of the public to come and see the artwork develop over that week. So again, a really exciting opportunity. So it'll be an artwork that will be there for council and the community to see and use, and it will have embedded in it everything that's been thought about in terms of the stories that have been shared and the themes which I'll run through. Just wanted to note that we haven't yet secured engagement with Mackay and the Narrandjeri Regional Authority. We'll continue. It is a process of respectful consultation and engagement. So we've been very successful with the other groups, and we'll continue going through that process as much as we can. Cultural themes that are coming up. Looking at that cultural heart, Manuka Mission and Nut, trying to pronounce it. Something.
No. It's not Nyot.
It's not Nut.
It's Nut. Nyot means nothing, but Nyat. But a lot of people say it wrong.
That's so. I would encourage everybody to try and change to. It isn't nothing. It's very much
something. It's very much something.
Yeah, it's very much something.
The main thing.
Nut.
And it's Manuka.
Manukas. Thank you.
Nuk.
So the cultural heart, the rivers and the stories. So again, they're not stories for me to tell, but they're acknowledged as within that region, that's where it is. The connections, pathways to the river. So the important linkages through, which I think are exceptionally interesting ways of broadening the opportunities and the tourism and narratives and connections and walks across the wider region. Dreaming stories, significance of the sky country, which is coming through across all the groups we've spoken to, recognizing that 6,000 years of living culture and that deep time, which really fits strongly into also the dark sky and that idea of time as a very different process. So we're starting to fold some of those themes into different aspects of the project, and then the need to recognise the uniqueness of the Murray-Mallee country in terms of seasons, flora and fauna, and traditional ecological knowledge.
Sorry, is that meant to be 60,000?
I think it might need to be 60,000.
60,000, yeah.
I do apologise.
That's all right.
The river corridor tourism, focusing on riverfront destinations, and that will overlap into the township master plans as well. And as I said before, that is the strength of this project. Whereas you might do a riverfront destination plan, it stops at the boundary. Looking at it within the context of the townships, we're expanding those links and drawing the opportunity to draw people, community, visitors, tourists into those areas. Looking at DDA, disability discrimination access compliance, so improving that. I do a little presentation on universal design, and I'm always talking about, we talk about aging in place, but we should be able to live in our communities in place. So the older we get, we should still be able to access, and this considers accessibility in those areas. Celebrating the history, focusing on the boating requirements, standardisation of moorings, just improving the understanding and the offering, getting people to the river, getting them to enjoy the river and spend longer. Trails and development of waterfront links. So how do we connect up or start to develop the Murray River to Coorong strategic walk? That's a 400-kilometre walk that has been sort of put forward. Through the mid-Murray region, there's that opportunity to start to develop those sections where we can. So that will form part of that element. Place activation, again, making people want to spend longer, and then looking at the natural relationship and natural areas along the river and trying to improve those, protect those where we can.
Just if you can go back, you mentioned the Morgan Wharf, the reuse of materials from end-of-life assets.
Yes.
I think that'll go down like a lead balloon.
We're just specifically on that, and we're going through we've got to go through the consultation process. So the question is the impact of the last flood on the historic wharf, the ability to repair it, the opportunity to leave it as an artifact, as it is, to bring people away from it, because previously it was restored so you could actually access it, or whether longer term you can reuse those in a different way to tell the story of the wharf. So we're going through the opportunities. We haven't actually settled on anything at the moment.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is if you were to go up to Morgan with that wording, I think you'd be hunted out of town very quick.
I'll take that on notice. We'll change that wording. Thank you. Township master plans, again, just some of the highlights, building connections and experiences, looking at links, attractions, improving landscape opportunities. It's kind of the simple stuff that will make the towns sing, just improving those elements, reinforcing town identity and community, so that sense of community pride within the towns themselves, looking at upgrades of main streets. There's lots of little things. I think what we're trying to do with the township master plans is to make sure that there's something almost for everyone, that there's opportunities for grant funding, opportunities for infrastructure assets, upgrades through council activities, but also opportunities for the community to undertake works to improve their own environment as well. So it becomes a broad sort of capturing of all the ideas, and we want the community to share those with us when we speak to them at the end of June. Looking at multi-purpose developments of open space, how can open space be recreation, but how can it perhaps support overnight camping? How can it support telling a cultural story? How can it support the dark sky as well? So sitting on the oval in the middle of Sudan is, probably it could be an amazing experience. So we want to promote those as well. Resilience, sustainability and climate adaptation, key factors for the region to think about as we move forward. Flood events, we've got warmer, drier weather, more significant rain events. So the infrastructure and the way we think now needs to be changed, and we're trying to apply that to these master plans. And then that diversity of visitor economy, and looking at grounding it in the local communities and what they want to achieve across the region. Just some examples of what's in that report. So we undertake a detailed assessment. We are developing for each of the towns an action plan, which has detailed recommendations and locates them across the site as well. And we'll be using this information both in the consultation online, and then for each of the towns developing a little bit of a illustration just to show what's possible. We often find that putting all the words down can get you so far, showing, what is it, picture paints 1,000 words. The hope is that people will be able to respond to this. It is part of the consultation, and it's great to get that feedback because then we can adjust our thinking once we've spoken to each of the communities. Mannum Waterfalls, really the vision is to develop distinct visitor experience. It is an incredible asset and incredibly close to Mannum and also to the developing tourism opportunities to the south. So I think it's worth pointing out that probably 10 years ago, if we'd had this conversation, we wouldn't have had perhaps the same focus on the south of the region around Murray Bridge being such a strong tourism focus. Really, Monato Visitor Centre hadn't been developed, the hotel hadn't been developed, the Bend hadn't been developed. So all of those have happened really in the last 10 years, which have changed that thinking in terms of Murray Bridge as a destination for tourism. Mannum Waterfalls provides a stepping stone with a completely different experience, actually quite complementary in a natural experience to the safari park at Monato. So the idea is starting to look at Mannum Waterfalls as a unique destination that can bring people into Mannum, into the river as a series of events. Again, that's a half day exploring the falls. We want people to sort of understand those opportunities. Really, the key findings at the moment, we're going through a sort of detailed assessment, is just trying to almost separate the area into two distinct opportunities. At the moment, you've got the upper falls and the lower falls. Car parks, I think that's they kind of referred to. They're very different landscape experiences. They're very different terrains. There's opportunities to look at the cultural overlays that have been discussed. So potentially more of the men's focus for the upper falls, and for the pools, looking at the women's focus in terms of cultural interpretation, using different names. So rather than upper and lower, refer to Mannum Falls, refer to Mannum Pools. Pools will be more accessible because of the topography. We can talk about different hydrological features. So there's a lot of interpretation that we can actually develop through the master planning process. Look at trailheads, looking at trail erosion, and really developing it into a connected destination where you could spend an entire day or you could spend a couple of hours and clearly signposting those opportunities. Finally, the dark sky experience, landmark destination, flagship attraction, leveraging the reserve status. It is an incredibly unique opportunity that you can't pick up this experience and pop it somewhere else. Nobody else can take it from this region. So it does operate on so many levels in terms of being able to be a centre that can look at education, science, cultural interpretation, entertainment, the ability to disperse that experience across the region from viewing points on the ridges through to viewing areas on the plains into the idea of the core or the centre. We are going through what's called a multi-criteria analysis. So it's a way of setting up the detailed criteria for the location and selection, and then assessing that against different candidate sites. From that work that we've undertaken, we've really developed a two-mode approach, focusing on the main heart or the main experience being in the Swan Reach area and potentially connected to the Swan Reach Conservation Park, linkages to the town. And then using Walker Flat with its, the opportunity at Walker Flat is really that early evening, capitalising on the experiences of the cliffs and that destination, and then moving into an early evening experience, which works really well in certain tourism markets for a short duration. So potentially connections to the hotel at Monarto, as well as Murray Bridge or Mannum, moving up and moving back, whereas Swan Reach is a more overnight or nighttime experience as well. So that they're different experiences, different opportunities, but the two-node model really satisfies both of those opportunities. In terms of next steps, we're seeking feedback and support from the Dark Sky Committee as it stands at the moment, and also Council, just to really get an aligned vision. There's a lot of discussion, a lot of enthusiasm, lots of people looking at different opportunities all at the same time. We are working very hard as a project team and with Council to align all of that thinking into one opportunity. There's greater power in everybody thinking and talking and looking at the outcomes. It doesn't negate everybody sort of doing their own thing, but we really feel that there's far stronger benefit for everyone involved if we're talking and share that same vision. Re-engaging with the stakeholders. There are a number of stakeholders that we want to talk to about that shared benefit opportunities, and then finalising the site analysis and the functional planning. So a bit like the township master plans, what we want to do is have a business plan that shows the opportunities, looks at the costing for the project itself. So it's shovel ready in many respects from a planning perspective, but also that we're developing visuals and illustrations that show the potential of this site and how amazing it's going to be. Just to quickly run through the Roadshow program. So June to end of June to July, we're running a series of sessions. The idea is because this project is so extensive, we want to make sure that we're capturing everybody's feedback and so that they get an insight to what this project is. So it's almost like doing the briefing I've done today so that people can go, I understand how that connects with that. And actually, I'd like to tell you about this. And it will enable us to get a range of ideas from potential tourism opportunities, recalibrating or correcting our thinking, which is really important through this process, to where a tree might need to be planted for the greatest benefit. We're looking at Cambrai and Truro on Tuesday the 18th. So if anybody has any media contacts or whatever, please put the word out and encourage everybody to come along. Swan Reach and Blanchetown on the 26th, Morgan on the 27th, and then Mannum and Palmer on the 4th of July. And the idea is that we'll have the assessment for all the towns there. It's not that we're just looking at Cambrai from the Cambrai one. If somebody just happens to be passing through from Morgan, we'll have the information from Morgan. We can have a chat. So the idea is we're trying to go to as many places, but we're also trying to capture as much information during those visits as possible. What we're looking at in terms of the format is I'll be there. I will probably do a quick presentation just to say this is what we're looking at, this is what we're going to do. And then there will be an exhibition of the various projects with the information that we've collected. So what I presented to reformatted in a bit more of a visual sense. There'll be information on the cultural mapping. So we'll be showing people the cultural themes and promoting the upcoming workshop. We'll collect feedback and other opportunities. We've used the word inform. We'll be informing the community of what those themes are. We're not really saying, do you agree with them or do you want to change them? That's not appropriate from a cultural perspective, but it's really informing and letting them know. The river corridors and the township master plans very much engage, so we'll have trustee sticky dots and post-its, and we'll be scribbling lots of information and marking up plans and really saying, what should we be doing in these areas? And as I said, depending on who comes along, we'll have plans for all of the areas and we can swap those out and have those various conversations. Mannum Waterfall will have the draft master plan. So the intent is to inform and then seek feedback on what we're proposing. Again, checking that our assumptions are correct, that the intent reflects a deeper knowledge that the community would have for those areas. And the dark sky, again, presenting that key findings for the feasibility and then seeking feedback. There's also the opportunity, the community action plan is sort of in train at the moment. We'll have council staff assisting us through the tourism roadshow. So what always happens is the community come and tell us everything about all the things they want to do. And it's just a nice way of re-engaging. And I suppose we're looking at the social, we're looking at the hard infrastructure for community, the benches, the footpaths, the improvements that can be made. They also add into the social infrastructure in terms of well-being and other elements that are required. So the two are connected, and we can use this to really get some more information from the community without over-consulting time, which can be difficult. We have also started a bit of an online engagement. This isn't quite online yet, but we're advertising the sessions. We want people to sort of find information from the Your Say website. We will build, as the project progresses, update pages for each of the sub-projects. Council has Social Point, thank you. Social Point, which is an exceptional interactive online community engagement platform. So we will be able to put all our analysis maps up on the website, and then people will be able to go to each of the towns and add their own comments. So it's exactly the same process as we'll be undertaking in the community roadshow. If people can't get there, or they're shack owners, or if they've got mobility, older age or mobility issues, they can undertake the same process and we can integrate that feedback. And that can be going on for a longer period of time in case people miss the particular sessions that we're running. We'll also have the visuals on there. I'm hoping we can do the before and after slider thing. There's a fancy little app that you can apply to the visualizations where you have the before and the after, and you slide it across and you can see how it changes. So again, people can experience what those opportunities might be for each of their towns. That's it from me. Sorry, that was a lot. I can go back to slides or answer questions accordingly.
I have a comment, I guess, about the roadshow. That noticed that it was sort of Thursdays and Fridays during the day for two of the areas where it's like a lot of those people will be working and in the working community won't be able to then engage. Would you think about doing an evening session for those other areas? Or so we had 3 to 5. I just thought if that was, say, 5 to 7, then people would probably after work be able to have more ability to get to it.
I'm going to be horribly blunt, but I have some servicing issues with staff and longer idea is being able to get staff to be able to service it in the evening, and the remoteness of some of the locations has just made it difficult.
Yeah.
That's why we really felt that we would make the compromise and have Saturday sessions so that we could expand that. And I'm trying to put the word out that if you don't make the daytime one, you can come to any of the others and it will be the same material. So I never get it.
Piggery is hard. I know it's hard.
We never get it perfectly right.
Having the online system, I think, is great as well. And for those people that aren't going to be there at Sedan during the day, whatever, they'll be able to have it on the hall or on their notice board on Facebook, whatever, saying that
Absolutely.
Do it online.
And
because the key thing is obviously trying to get engagement. To come into Jeff's point, always is about how do we engage with people. So the messaging is the important part in this. So we've written to all the progress associations and asking them to promote it amongst their members and promote it amongst their community. Every single one of you, you're out there talking to your community. Promote this. I know Kevin. He asks us. When he goes to the meetings, we ask for updates. So, I'm constantly badgering him of, promote this, because we need to get that message out there. So whether they can attend in person or do it online, we just really want to encourage people. This is a great opportunity for them to sort of set the future for their townships and region.
And we will reinforce that in that. And it's a constant tension. I'm a huge believer in hearing from communities. I don't do the wander around and then, here's a master plan and then face the music. I would love to spend longer. It's just logistically with what we're trying to achieve. We've got this focus, and I think the online presence will be really good opportunity, and it just broadens that. We, of course, will be bringing all of these plans back. So there's going to be another session where people can engage with that. So, it's tough. And I know we haven't quite got it perfect, but I think having rather than the midweek evening, actually having the weekends just gives a little bit more wiggle room in terms of people being able to come and talk to us.
No sport in Mannum that weekend.
We did. I think we did have it on the 19th of June, and we swapped it out to the 4th of July because Mannum was away game on the 19th. So
it's very well done.
So I have been guided by the team, and I think it's a buy or something. So we should be in good shape.
Done well for Mannum.
Thank you, Warwick, and appreciate the work that you and your team have been doing over the journey, and to the community team and Gary's team that have been engaging with you. Really important project for us as a region.
Yes.
And really looking forward to the outcomes and the feedback from the community sessions that happen over the coming months.
We're about halfway through. We're now at the exciting part where we understand the potential, and now we just now we want to drive it forward with the community's sort of guidance as well. So it's really exciting.
Thank you. All right. Safe travels.
Thank you.
Board agenda.
Do that later.
No. We're following it. Board agenda.
Board agenda's only going to take a minute or two, isn't it? It's bam, it's done.
Board agenda.
Any points? So what are you saying?
Yeah. No? Scott.
Yeah,
Public Library Services School Community Library Funding Review, and that is it. Or just Scott? Welcome. I'll just bring it up.
All right. Thanks for the info, Ben. My name's Scott. I am a Strategic Community Development Officer, Mid-Murray Council, obviously. So I oversee the library's portfolio, and this will be a report going to June meeting about some funding changes with the school community library model. The program itself is a partnership between the Department of Education and local government, and it's basically targeted at rural and remote or regional areas to sort of provide the maximum benefit out of existing assets. So we partner with the department to deliver library services out of the school libraries. The current funding model that this is the program operates off was put in place in 2004. It has been indexed by CPI annually, but they do a 10-year review with the 10-year agreements. And after no changes in 2014, they've reviewed the model through 2 years of consultation and have come up with some funding changes, which will be put in place as of the 1st of July 2027, with the agreement needing to be entered in July 2026. So a report was presented to Council in February 2024. That was the first stage of the consultation process, and our Council endorsed option 2 as the preferred option or the preferred funding model for the school community libraries. This was the 10% contribution, which was a reduction in funding. The idea being that based on need of our libraries, the top-up funding could be supplied, but not needing to mandate that at the council level. As you can see, that's the little graph from the report there that was produced after that consultation. Option 3, which is the per capita base model with a base of $6,000, was heavily endorsed by a lot of other councils and schools. So that meant that was the option that was selected for the funding model. What we wanted or what we endorsed was sort of the $42,000 contribution. Under this model, that will be a $97,000 contribution to funding part operation of Swanreach, Cambrai and Mannum school community libraries. Just some other recommendations that have come out of the review, not just funding changes. There is a little bit more emphasis on baseline services. So currently there's almost a bit of a grey area between what's expected to be delivered with this funding that we give the school community libraries. So these will all be confirmed in a local agreement. We currently have a template. An actual agreement will be, we don't have that yet. That'll be at the completion of the review. Recommendation 2, the big one, is going to be the change in funding. The other one there, number 5, worth noting, they're raising the catchment population for school community libraries. So basically, it was 5,000. If you then have a population that you're serving over 5,000 people, you then can't deliver a school community library. You have to deliver a public library service, which Mannum was getting very close, serves a population of 4,700. So that's now being increased to 6,000. So we now have a bit more wiggle room in delivering a school community library service in Mannum. The other change there is they give us a small grant for the community as part of the funding we give them, which has been purely for basically technical equipment, providing a public PC. They are changing that grant funding. It's going to 50,000, which is an increase in the total pool, but it's going to be specifically for literacy programming. So a little bit more of a positive change rather than just getting a little bit of additional money to provide technical equipment, sort of some targeted literacy programming.
That 50,000 is across all school community libraries. It's not just for us.
Yeah. We see at the moment, we probably see about 1,500 to each library. But it's based on per capita. So it's a little bit more for Mannum, which has a significantly bigger catchment population. So the revised funding, there was a lot of feedback around quite a significant change. It just needs to be phased in over 2 years to be fully implemented. It'll be like leading into the 2028-2029 budget. So 50% of the increase will need to be incorporated into the budget next year, and then the full increase will need to be incorporated into the budget for 2028-2029.
So 27-28 budget, not the budget that has just gone to council today, the following year. It'll be 50%, yeah.
Yeah, so the agreement will need to be entered into, or not entered into this financial year for the change to then follow the year after. So this is a little bit of a breakdown of what how it actually looks with these changes. So this is our current operating grants, which we pay to the school community libraries. You can see there for Swanreach, Mannum and Cambrai, and then what will be required under the new funding change. So over the whole of the libraries, it's about a $34,000 increase to the funding.
So just to expand on the previous slide that showed our preferred option was option 2, and it was the 42,000. So we pay more than that currently. We pay the 60 odd. That was the option that we were going for, and there would have been a reduction for us. Just to make that clear.
And that's more than 50% increase.
Just a question I have with that is because obviously councils put in responses and school libraries also put in responses. So like we are one council with 3 school libraries in our response, and then there was 3 others that put in a response. So somehow I feel like in regards to that data a little bit, it's like from the school's point of view is very different from the council's perspective with these responses of who should be paying the most of the fund.
We consulted heavily with the schools over time. Swanreach and Cambrai were quite comfortable with option 2 as well. Mannum were needing more. However, we had the conversations with them that if option 2 was chosen, and that would potentially be a reduction, that we would either put it back up to what we're currently paying, the 60 odd, so they would still get what they're currently getting, they wouldn't get a reduction. Or if there was the opportunity to have a agreement with all of them rather than with individuals, then if Mannum need more and Canberra and Swanreach need less, then we can take from theirs and give. So that's something that we'll be able to look into with the schools by having this executive group and the new agreements.
I was just saying from an overview perspective, like I'm just looking at it like, I mean, we've done great work in our region, but other regional councils or other councils could have not made those discussions with their libraries easily about let's get on the same page.
And did we get 3 votes because we have 3 that other councils might not have 3 school libraries? Like,
No, that's why I feel like the stats there don't seem like, you can pick apart stats always, but I'm just seeing already in that stat that there could be some kind of discrepancy of how accurate that is.
We'll include the actual report as an attachment. Because initial thought was that the schools would outweigh councils. A lot of councils were really happy to pay extra and already do pay extra for their school community library services. And it does have the breakdown of the votes. So you can see it was heavily supported mostly by councils, the third option as well.
Okay.
There was some bigger, like Clare Valley, bigger populations as well. And then some of the really remote ones are mostly serviced by the state government rather than local government. So, but there will be a breakdown you'll be able to have a look at as well. If you're definitely, it's good to dive into it. Yeah. So with the increase in funding, so they've also redone with the agreements, they've redone the guidelines around how the relationship works, which I talked about with the baseline services. One of the recommendations is that, or one of requirements is that a local executive group be formed to oversee library operation. This executive group will be representatives from each library. So we've had initial discussions with the librarians and the school principals, with Mannum, their business manager as well, and also it says a delegate of the CEO, so representative from council administration. So with the additional funding, there is a requirement for improved governance and oversight of the library service. And this will, where we have rigid things in the agreement, it will almost be with the libraries as a whole. So this is where we will be able to have that flexibility to really align what we're doing as a Mid-Murray library service rather than 4 libraries just doing their own thing. So we'll have a lot better opportunities to align in what we're doing and provide a better service for the community. Just some of the examples there, being able to have sort of whether we have visiting contractors or authors that can actually do our whole council area that can be shared between the libraries, rotating collections of things that, so it's not just sitting in one library where they're all investing in things differently. We can actually have a rotating collection that may serve the whole council area at different times. More opportunities for, it says youth engagement, just engagement activities in general, because a big problem has been actually getting staff, where it's all good to say that these things will be delivered, but at this time we don't have staff who can deliver it. So this will sort of create opportunities where we can actually share some staffing. and be able to where one library is closed. But that will be all in consultation with the schools. It will just aligning it together will make it sort of the potential is much better to do stuff for the community. Shared equipment, coordinating events, workshops, rather than all doing different things on the same day for History Month, we can sort of divvy it up and have a little bit more of a council-wide approach to what we're doing in the libraries. Just a little bit about usage. It's always good to talk about how the libraries are being used. The data that we have is from Public Library Services. So this is mostly around borrowing and members. And this is, so in terms of their catchment populations, so it's not just the population of the town, but it's also serving sort of the broader region around it until the other library takes over. So you can see just how the numbers have held up over the years. Slight decline. We're kind of seeing that with the member numbers. Mannum's obviously fairly significant, serving 1,000. So that's about 20% of their catchment population. And then Cambrai and Swan Reach, their catchment populations are around 1,800 to 2,000. So sort of serving about 10% members with the library. And we have the actual borrowings, so digital and physical. Digital borrowings as well get allocated to the libraries because they pay a portion of the subscription, but just a bit of an idea of how the borrowing is sort of tracking across the libraries. Just to note that this is data from April, so it hasn't fully captured the 25-26 financial year. So we haven't had this huge slump this year in borrowing. Just doing like a projection for based on what we've had, just using that amount for the remainder of the year. Mannum is going to drop slightly below the previous year. Cambrai as well, slightly below. And then, Cambrai as well, slightly below, and Swan Reach an increase on last year. In general, the library borrowings are going to be higher than what was seen in 2019, 2020. The peak has, all the libraries experienced that peak, whether it was COVID, they've improved their digital collection borrowing. So there's sort of a multitude of reasons that there could have been an increase, but generally library usage is holding pretty steady. So just with this agreement, it is either an opt-in or opt-out. It is either we sign the agreement to enter to the new funding model or close down the community portion of the school community library service. With the agreement as well, there is a 12-month notice of termination. So with the recommendation that we enter the agreement, we can review it after the funding model has changed to see whether that we're actually seeing benefit out of the additional funding to review, and if there is a wish to terminate it, that it's a 12 months notice. It can also be individual libraries could not be included, but if one library, for example, Swan Reach or Cambrai, if that were to close, it would increase the population in Mannum, which may force us to have to withdraw from the Mannum School Community Library program as well. Any questions?
Just a correction, it's not Cambrai Community College, it's Cambrai School.
You have that on the slide?
Yeah.
Yes, that would have been copy and pasting. Yes.
Primary school. Primary school.
Right.
Yes, it's the primary school. Yeah.
I don't know if I missed it, but how much do we spend on the Morgan Library?
Yeah, I was going to ask about Morgan.
We may need to take that question.
Yeah, we didn't include Morgan because it's a public library, not a school community library.
Deciding whether to keep a school community library or not, we need to know how much a public library will cost us. So
Yeah, definitely.
We can incorporate that into the report.
Yeah.
There's something about the state government managing.
That's the Outback Authority school community libraries, because they don't have a local government. But the state government fully funds their libraries.
That's the deal.
Yeah, and there's 4 of them, I think.
And then what?
Sometimes there's swimming pools in certain remote areas.
Any other questions? Discussion? Thank you, Scott. Thank you. Matt?
No, I guess we just go ahead with the proposed recommendation that's got put at for our report next month. So unless there's any other considerations that
For me, it's just what do we not need in community that we can take away to fund the 50% rise, and we need to highlight that to the government. So when you do this, this is what council have to, we can't keep adding extra. Yeah, like we really need to say this is what we get or this to really show that that is a decision that council is going to have to make. And it's not fun being on council having to make decisions like that.
We do what we can to save money and then they're slapping us with stuff like this.
And there's other services that they can do the same thing to if we don't kick back now.
And maybe include for you guys having that board of everything as well. Like
Ridiculous. There's already school governing councils who can report back to council. I mean, one of our councillors sits on one of them. Like, it's got to be an easier option than just keep putting extra things on local government.
And maybe
And just take it all, see you later, close pool, close everything down.
maybe they should
really want to do.
be made aware that, people just don't live next door to the library. They've got to travel.
Yeah.
It's not
We've already got areas like Truro and Blanchetown that don't have a library. Or Swanreach has one, Morgan has one, but only because councils subsidise it. I think you'll find that it costs a lot more than that. But they're the kind of things we need to think about.
So does council want to see an opt-out recommendation?
I think it's got to be there. Just
No, I mean, is that the preferred recommendation option?
depends on what we miss. Like if we can pull something else back, like save some money somewhere. I just don't think you can keep adding 30,000 or 50% of that budget. We had to do that to every line. We're not going to. It's not sustainable.
Yeah. I mean, as Scott and Nat pointed out, obviously with our preferred option was option 2, because obviously it was going to be less, but we would probably then maintain the current allocation that we had.
This is where I wonder, like, we should have got 3 votes in that because we've got 3 libraries, whereas Clare has 1 and they get to put all their resources. It's a lot cheaper to have 1 than 3.
And some council areas aren't like unsustainable or have more money in the bank. So you have to be like, yeah, we'd love to support more money into our libraries if we had the money, and richer councils couldn't have the opportunity to do that. To be like, oh, we'll pay 20% extra, and that's a rich council's ability.
Fortunately, that's how
council's ability.
I worked. It's just it's the percentage of the numbers of response.
That could be in the actual item as well. The agenda item is how many school libraries there are. So like for swims, for example, we've got 29 systems. So if we got 1 vote in our LGA thing, we're actually 17% of the swims in the whole state. So how fair is that we get 1 vote,
That's right.
everyone else gets
The same vote, and they don't have it.
we've got 17 of them.
Yeah. Yeah, the discrepancy of the equity of it.
I don't understand why councils would vote to spend more money. What they needed to, that just.
Yeah.
Because they've got
providing service to the community.
if they've only got 1 library and lots of population, they get more money there. So they would have worked out what's better for them. And
Yeah.
Some councils already contribute more. So we get advised how much we need to contribute to the school community library, and if we want to put more towards it because we feel that there is a need, a lot of councils already do that, so that they will potentially pull that back, and so there may not be as significant changes for other councils that have gone for that option.
Budgeting it already a little bit more anyway, like this amount. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Scott. Thank you, Nat. To the policy and procedure framework, which is the second last agenda item. So a copy of the policy and procedure framework with track changes is attached and was provided to the elected members, and a clean copy. The only change is just highlighting the fact that we will provide policies to council 2 weeks prior or at the elected member briefing, which is our normal process, so that you can provide feedback on them prior to a report coming back to council. So that's, other than some cosmetic stuff, that's the only changes that are proposed for that document.
happy with that.
If everyone's happy.
Yeah.
No
I
questions.
read of it.
All right, thank you. We'll hand over to Dave, who we did that.
We've done that.
We just had one during lunch break, and Ian have a briefing or be sworn in before the first meeting of next term, so that they can ask questions and stuff rather than getting thrown in the deep end. You can put that on the to-do list.
Put it on the notice, but if they're not EMs yet, they're not EMs.
No, but we can do a policy like other councils swear in their EMs as soon as the votes are declared, like within a week or so, rather than waiting until the 22nd or whatever it is. So just thoughts about that.
put it on the agenda for someone else to deal with.
Yeah.
We're going to be hearing a lot of that
Now,
the next few weeks.
Dave,
As you be aware, SA Water have obviously got some issues with their water treatment and capacity issues. They met with both council staff and the Mannum Golf Club on last Friday to talk about a current proposal they've had. Next slide. This is taken straight from their PowerPoint that they gave us. Basically what they're looking at doing is improving the disposal control, preventing over-irrigation at their current sites, maximising reuse and abiding by EPA rules. What they're looking at doing is installing a new rising main from the current pump station down at Mannum through some Mannum Golf Club land onto the through the golf course, through council land, through the council landfill transfer station site, and out private land out to an irrigation site. So the topic of this was about going to a lagoon. It's not going to a lagoon. Basically, it's going to be used as irrigation out at what is called Piggery Road. So basically, the alignment is from the site going south of the purple line through here. This purple line here is actually on golf course land. That's the golf course right there. The golf course comes down around through this area there, and then they're looking at doing underground boring through that area, all the way up to the other side of the council. They call it a dump driveway, but it's the transfer station driveway. Through this process in negotiation, over probably about 12 months of planning, we asked them to stay clear of the cemetery because we've actually been out there to look at obviously future expansion of the cemetery, to stay well clear of that. And also the fact is that there's a landfill site there under that area, and we want to make sure that they don't go through any landfill sites. So in essence, they're looking at doing normal trenching from there up to where the golf course is. So we're looking at putting a pump station in here. They're negotiating with the Mannum Golf Club at present. The exact location of that, it's a small 6 by 6 metre shed within the compound of probably 15 by 15 metres. Golf Club want it pretty much down here. They're going to run another power line up to run that pump station. Then it'll go by excavation here, underground, all the way over to the Belvedere Road, then underground again to Ram's property, and then all the way out to the irrigation site. So that's the proposed alignment. From their discussions the other day, they actually proposed this many years ago, and they've actually already put easements over part of these areas, but that was done in 2009. So now this alignment will change those easements, and they're now looking at putting the easements over this alignment. So as stated, it's going to come from the golf course. Those rectangular boxes are where they dig a pit, and then they do the underground boring. So there's no actual physical above ground excavation through those sites. So they'll go from that point to that point, and then across the Belvedere Road, and again out to the dump. Again, we've kept pretty close, kept away from what we said was a cemetery in case we ever have to have an expansion of the cemetery, which is probably will be topical in many years to come. And then obviously down that alignment of the road underneath those trees, and then they'll come up on the Ram Road, and then it'll be excavation all the way through. SA Water do work under the Water Industries Act, so basically it's a given they're going to do this. There's a consultation process for us. We have had a fair bit of, I suppose, input on the alignment to try to make sure that it's conducive to what their works are. So looking at the works moving forward, the yellow line is obviously a track they're looking at putting in obviously to serve the pump station. The golf club have been fairly conducive about where that pump station goes. They're sort of looking at tucking it back into their corner, and then they'll work through that whole area. They've also asked whether they can use Fulton Hogan are their contractor, and use our area there as a laydown yard. So we'll go through that process with them. And this is their projected timeline. This will get pushed out a little bit because obviously they've got to put a report to council on the basis of them occupying council land. The only portion is community land is the golf course, which is Crown under lease to the golf course through us. So that's the only portion that will have to go to council in regards to that project. There'll be a reporting snapshot.
Quick, bang.
Timeline.
Do that in 10 out of 10.
There will be a report coming into the next council meeting on this, on the basis of it. We've got to modify the report somewhat because now it's not a lagoon. We thought it was going to go to a lagoon. We also asked them about the opportunity of using irrigation water for the oval at a later date, but apparently the water doesn't meet B class water for irrigation on recreational grounds. They do irrigate now on the fairways, but the golf course actually use mains water on the greens, so they can flood the fairways with the type of water they've got. But it's got to go through a UV process first before you can reuse it back on a recreational area. So we have explored that, hoping that we can do that in the near future. But unfortunately, unless they went to a lagoon and then you brought a line back again, it won't fall under it.
They consider growing woodlot.
Well, that irrigation area out there, I suppose that's up to what they've got under their EPA guidelines. So that area there is where we got all the clay for the levees. And it's just basically gone back there and dumped. So what they're looking at doing is creating an area where they'll obviously irrigate, but then they'll mow or whatever they do with that extra.
I mean, it could be forward thinking to grow a wood lot, and in 30 years' time you might have wood for the paddle steamers.
Good thinking.
Any commercial fees for the areas they're going to use of our land?
Through the laydown yard, we've done it before where we source an income from that. It's not a big amount of dollars, but we're looking at doing it.
$100,000 per square metre is probably about the going rate.
They'll probably find somewhere else for that.
Well, then let them.
Yeah. But I suppose for the duration of the project, they're just looking at Fulton Hogan's are looking at using our top compound. And that's what they're looking at utilising for that area and using that road to come in to then service the pump station.
We should be asking for a commercial contribution.
My point is, the government is happy to take our library money away and we then fill it, yet they want to use our land at zero cost. Like I just think there is no other place that they could do this. They could not put this pipe without disturbing all of our land, and we should be commercialising that.
Yes.
Is it going to smell?
That's underground.
No, where they dump all the water.
Yeah.
The water's going to be disgusting.
Most likely. It would also be under licence for their EPA requirements to control the odour to a certain buffer zone.
It'll be out near the Piggery, so.
Well, Piggery Lane.
Right near my house.
Yeah, near your home.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at the map and I'm thinking we're going to have a lot of angry people on Magpie and Ibis and
they call the
one concern I have is like,
yeah.
I suppose if you smell the Mannum Golf Course now, that's exactly what they're going to be doing. So they're actually irrigating Mannum Golf Course with the same water. It's just they've got too much water to deal with, so they need to actually go down this path.
Why don't we move the water treatment plant?
Yeah. Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Where do we
one
send
restraint
that?
I think we
How do
haven't
get rid of that?
One restraint I think we haven't considered is that I know that there's a lot of ancient burial grounds around there, like from the golf course and the cemetery and where the old landfill was site, that was an ancient burial ground. So I know they've had problems with that at Mannum Waters of there being remains found in development digs. We're digging underground here, some pipeline through some paddocks and some fields. I think that could be a restraint that they might find or come across, that they might be coming across like remains.
They've already done that investigation.
Yeah. Okay.
What they do is when they're doing excavation and disturbing the ground, if they find remnants, they stop work and then there's an investigation.
Yeah.
So that's how they operate. So, any other questions? There'll be a report to the next council. Next one's on.
Next one is DEW, closure of paper roads.
Yeah, that's on the attachment. Once the map comes up, Department of Environment and Water are obviously looking at some matters associated with their conservation parks and various other areas. This one is Brookfield, which is on the Sturt Highway, just probably 10, 15 k's towards Truro from Blanchetown. The double pink line coming down on that diagonal road is the Sturt Highway, and then it comes out and goes due east-west. Brookfield Conservation Park entrance is probably just at the bottom of the page. Those blue lines are basically paper roads or road overlays within the area. They've probably got some tracks that lead through in and around those areas, looking at aerial photography, but nothing defined. What they're looking at doing is obviously restricting public access because it's the public accessible roads, and they're seeking council endorsement to close those internal roads so that they can facilitate, I suppose, appropriate access with the conservation park. They're prepared to pay for all aspects associated with the process. They're just seeking council endorsement to close those paper roads off.
So would it have any impact on council at all?
No, because it's declared conservation park. Basically, in some of those areas, there are gates now, and people would actually then trespass or go into those sites. What they're trying to do is obviously have one main access, and that's it. Then there's no public road, there's no public accessibility. So then it's illegal to go into a cut the fence.
Cool.
There.
They haven't managed to that conservation park.
I don't know when, I would say they do because it's a wombat farm, so there's a fair bit in there, but I don't know if they have a full plan.
Because yeah, there's one of those that are very old.
That's it. No queries? Cool. Next report, Dave.
That's good.
You exceeding expectations, Dave.
As always.
Wish we had more paper
Have you appeared
roads.
for the policy and framework? I've already done it.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, you're going to get more emails than you are receiving for the
We liked
lifestyle
your work, Vicky. We liked it. We didn't have any
It took a-
problems.
It took a minute.
What?
It took a minute and it's done.
Okay, good.
Thank
Everyone's
you.
happy, everyone's happy.
Good.
No,
Good job.
Revisit it, right? Cool.
but you're going to be receiving lots of emails about Blanchetown Farm. That's the,
Won't double up with the Blanchetown Pharmacy. I think a few of us who are going to respond will see us. Right?
Respond. Vicky, you will know how important it is.
We don't repeat it. We don't repeat
so
ourselves.
the next item is Morgan Quarry, is it not, Carol?
Yeah, Morgan Quarry.
Bring up the. Next slide, please. So Morgan Quarry site, there's the reference to it and the CR highlighted in green, quite a large portion of a parcel of land currently dedicated, the Crown land dedicated to council, and the current dedication is park lands. Site currently has multiple uses as outlined up there. We have some swims infrastructure. There's a transfer station. Part of it is the Morgan Caravan Park, the old Morgan Oval, the Quarry, Morgan Small Bore Rifle Club, and as you are aware, some four-wheel drive training goes on in there. And we had a deputation from to council a while ago now from a competing four-wheel drive club that would be liking that wanted to use it, and there's an existing arrangement with a club and their affiliates to use it. So as a result of that deputation, we've done some investigation to understand what has actually been used, what's the site, what are the risks. That included a meeting on site with Crown Lands and an inspection of that. Jump out if you've got any questions, but next slide, please, Carol. So the review of the site found that the current use of the land is not in accordance with the dedication, which is parklands, which I'm sure no one's surprised given there's swims and bumps and all kinds of things on there. There's 3 roads in there that all pass over the land and they're not designated roads, including the Tealy Highway. There's no native title issues, so we've investigated that, and there's no native title issues. The land is fenced and has a locked gate. It has been for some time, but Dave, that gets cut and unlocked or not by key, and people use it. So there's a number of risks associated with this parcel of land, given the size of it and what has happened on there. So what we are proposing from an administration perspective is that we have further discussions with Crown Lands to investigate the division of the land into different parcels, up to 4 as proposed, to align these parcels with the current approved uses and have the parcels dedicated appropriately. So, for example, the swims infrastructure, the transfer station, the caravan park, all of those. And as the note there says, that parcel, that land division would assist with the road issues as noted above. probably the most significant thing is we feel that the current use of the four-wheel drive training is a risk to council, and there's potential environmental issues as well to that. There's no facilities on there. There's no toilets. There's no infrastructure to facilitate the use, and we're proposing that would cease, which would be obviously the long-standing relationship, and there's another group that wants to use it. But we feel the benefit, and there are benefits. I want to be clear when we talked about this internally and we asked questions. There are benefits to the town for that use. Because they do use accommodation and they do shop and go to the pub and that. But the requirement from a council perspective to put things in place to properly deal with this would warrant a lot of resources being thrown at it. And if something goes wrong, we've seen some issues in recent times where there's been some injuries and death associated with some of these activities, and it's just not appropriate in our opinion. So we'll put something back to council, but we wanted to brief you on that to hear your thoughts or get any feedback from you on what is currently being proposed.
At what point are they informed about this change of land?
Subject to council's decision. So a report would come back to council.
After the decision, not
No, there'll be consultation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we would seek their feedback. Yeah. But yeah, we would come back and report. But we haven't made any decisions, but we feel that the risks associated with this is problematic. And it's been a historic use that has gone on and on. And there is systems and processes in place to manage that. They have to have insurance and they have to book and that. But realistically, it came up when another party wanted to use it. And we started looking into it and felt that it was probably risky.
And that's sometimes what happens when you start taking a look at a place. Yeah.
Is there a possibility that that parcel of land that they're using for that driver training, is there a possibility that those clubs could actually purchase that section of land from the Crown Lands Department?
There may be a lease option. We would have to be rededicated and become not Crown land for someone to purchase, but there's potentially use of it.
Because that way it's out of our hands if they take over the lease of it.
Yeah, so potentially, and the other club has come back and they keep following us up to say what's going on, and they're interested in potentially parcel land or leasing, depending on what we do. So there's options. I think the key next step is to have the conversations with Crown around the potential land division, and see what the options are there, and consult and engage with the parties around that.
Depends how far you want to dig. When I used to shoot at small ball club, it'd be quite often you'd have to stop shooting because all of a sudden behind the targets would be 7 or 8 falls.
Oh my God. Wow.
Moving targets.
Crazy. That was
Our point exactly.
I mean, really, there was
full club and a full drive club come together, and what's
there
the
was no
outcome?
liaising between the two clubs. Plus, the small ball didn't know there was driver training going on, and I suppose they didn't know shooting was going on. So
that is so unsafe, potentially.
Should they have the big flags hanging off them? You just see a flag going across.
We're playing fire. And there's
no one knows what that is.
No one knows what it
If you've been to a shooting club before, you wouldn't know what the flag is.
No doubt.
So people's thoughts, are they comfortable with that potential approach?
I think it is what it is. We need to reduce risk. I was really worried, and when we saw the video, like trees being broken, things like that.
And also you've got to think of soil erosion, degradation, not good.
That shouldn't be done like that.
And there are commercial premises to do that on these days.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And there's one in our region that can do that. Yeah.
There's one in our region already.
Yeah, the tall dry place, you mean?
Oh, right, yeah.
That's one of them.
Yeah, okay.
Going to just outside.
They're around.
Thoughts? Nothing else? Happy with that sort of approach? So,
Done.
thank you.
Last one.
I'm leaving you.
You won't be able to listen to this bit because it's confidential.
I know.
We can fill it in.
So the last one on the agenda is a confidential item.